TEDxSiouxFalls, how are we doing? Thank you so much for braving all of this. You know, the world doesn't know how tough we are in these type of moments. This is nothing for us, this type of weather, so we appreciate you coming in spite of it. I remember when I was young, being in Sunday school, we were learning the lesson of Cain and Abel. Now, if you're not familiar with the story, I'll give you the short version. Cain and Abel were brothers, Cain being the older brother. And at one point, he became so overwhelmed with jealousy that eventually he led his brother Abel into a field where he struck him dead with a rock. Now, this was some heavy content for the time, but I remember it generating some really amazing conversation. Someone in the class asked, why would God create a weapon? To which someone quickly rebutted, God didn't create a weapon because a rock is not a weapon. After a little bit more back and forth, finally we aimed the question at our Sunday school teacher, is a rock a weapon? And I remember being struck by the simplicity of her response. It depends on who's holding the rock. Now, this is true of many things in our lives, all of the institutions and organizations that are woven into almost every aspect of all that it is that we do. From the government to the media, to schools, churches, corporations, they all have one major thing in common, in that their righteousness, their deeds, their contributions, their conscience are all determined by one primary factor, their leadership. Now, our frustration with some of these institutions and organizations, both in how they function and in how they make us feel, can get us to a point where we focus more on the rock than on who's holding it. Leadership, perhaps the world's greatest commodity, is facing a massive shortage. Recently, there was a study done called the Global Leadership Forecast. It is one of the largest, most comprehensive studies on leadership in the world. It included almost 2,500 businesses, over 25,000 leaders, 10% of those leaders coming from the HR space. And when those leaders were asked the question, what are the biggest challenges you stand to face going into the future? Two responses rose to the top. One was attracting and retaining talent. But the number one challenge leaders stood to face going into the future was developing next-gen leadership. Next-gen leadership for a next-gen world. Now, this is not just specific to corporations. Stanford also did a study speaking with nonprofits, and it turns out 4 out of 5 nonprofits also said that they were having issues with leadership and management. Now, I don't think we need to talk about how we can improve in our leadership in different areas, but one of the biggest mistakes that we've made in the last 50 years is consistently and constantly conflating leadership with management. Because all of these issues that we talked about, why would we be surprised? Where is it that we teach leaders? More importantly, where is it that we intentionally teach leaders? Now, some of you might say, hey, we have a leadership development program in my business, or we have a leadership development program in our schools, and to that I say, amazing, that's awesome. But I would want to make one distinction, and that is the difference between a leadership development program and a management development program. Because if what you are primarily learning is delegation and time blocking and performance improvement processes, policies and procedures, then you are not in the leadership development program, you are in the management development program. Now, management skills are important, you need those too, but it's not leadership. So let's talk about what it takes to manage. It means you administer or you run an organization of some sort. That's very different than leadership. So what does it look like when we talk about the definition of what it means to lead? And that is to guide on a way, especially by going in advance. To guide on a way, especially by going in advance. So when we talk about leadership, we're talking about going first. We're talking about guidance. When we speak of being the bigger person, when we speak of compromise, when we speak of being the example, what we're talking about is going first. We're talking about guidance. We're talking about leadership. And by that definition, I believe that we are in short supply. So what do we do about that? There's really 2 major components, right? How do we create leaders on scale? And perhaps more importantly, what is it that we're actually teaching these leaders to be next-gen, compassionate, empathetic, courageous leaders? Well, I want to take a little time to speak on that. And so I want to talk about some of the key elements of creating a next-gen leader, a different type of leader for a different type of world and a different type of audience. One of the first key elements to being an effective leader is your ability to make a case. A lot of times, this is not something that we think about. But if we accept the basic premise that I get to do what I want to do, and you get to do what you want to do, if I should ever come to you and want you to do what I want you to do, shouldn't I be prepared to make a case? For a couple reasons. Number one, I want to develop the ability to gain agreement. And the first reason why I want to be able to gain agreement is because it's very difficult to get somebody to do or hold someone accountable to what you think they should do, or how high you think that they should go, or who you think that it should be. If the person's not in on it, if they have not given their agreement, it's going to be hard to do. It is much easier when you're holding someone accountable to what they feel like they should do, or how high they feel like they should go, or who they feel like they should be. They have to agree and be engaged. The second piece of it is that if you want to get someone to a place, it is always easier and it is always better if they move under their own power, because you can push them and you can pull them, but you are not leading them until they move under their own power. You have to have the ability to make a case. The second thing that's important for us to teach is courage. This is another thing that may seem atypical or something that we wouldn't necessarily teach, but in a world that is so riddled with fear, what would make more sense than for us to teach courage? Because, of course, courage is not the absence of fear, but rather the ability to overcome that fear. And we need to teach the skill of courage, particularly in three areas. One, we need to teach people the courage to speak, that their voice has value and that they can contribute. Yes, it should be buoyed with substance and credibility, but your voice means something. If you see something, say something. We have to teach people to speak. Next, we have to teach people the courage to act. In a cynical world where everyone is a critic, it is hard to act. It is hard to do anything. It is easy to be paralyzed by perfection, but we have to teach people to act. Once you have done your due diligence, once you have asked the questions, once you have gotten the data, you have to move, you have to act. And then we need to teach people the courage of leadership. In our new mixed world, it can be difficult to lead. It can be hard to lead someone that's older than you or more tenured than you, or to lead in a new position or in a new environment. We have to teach people that any gaps in leadership hurt us all and that they need to be filled. So we need to teach people the courage to lead. Now, in order to get the most out of people, you got to be able to make a mark on their lives. The thing about being a leader is that the people who may come to you in many different ways. After 20 years of life, 30 years of life, 40 years of life, how do you change the dynamics of a person's behavior? How do you change their life's trajectory? You have to be able to make a mark. And in order for you to be able to make that mark, you have to be able to make an impact. What does it take to make an impact? It takes two things. It takes mass and it takes acceleration. It takes mass and your ability to move it. But when we talk about mass, we're not talking about weight, throwing your weight around, power and position. Those are tools. What we're talking about is your mass, your substance. What are you made of? What are your experiences? What are your lessons? What is your character? What is it that you believe? That's your mass. But you could be the brightest person in the world. You could be the most integral person in the world. But if you can't move it, if you can't get it going, if you can't do the work, you will accomplish exactly nothing. And so that's the next piece of it, is how do you create momentum? How do you create movement? How do you create acceleration? How do you lean on your ability to make a case in order to bring other people to your cause, to get that thing moving? Because the more mass, the harder it is to move. If you want to affect people's lives, if you truly want to be an effective leader, you have to have the ability to make an impact. In order to do that, you have to know how to move your mass. Next, it's the element of belief. It's the true reason why most of us do anything. We do leadership development training and organizational culture consulting, and one of the things that we studied when we were developing a few things was nonprofits. We looked at nonprofits and we say, why are nonprofits able to retain talent when they're making so much less than what they can make in the public sector? They're working the long hours and they're doing the hard work, and usually for causes of more consequence, feeding children, clean water. Why is it that they stay? It's because they believe in it. They believe in what it is that they're doing. And a true leader has the skill to connect to what they believe, help others connect to what they believe, and connect them together. Now, some people might say, listen, It's easy to get people to believe in saving kids. It's easy to get people to believe in Red Cross or Greenpeace. I sell toasters. I can't get people to believe in toasters. And you're probably right. And if that's what you're doing, you probably make low-quality toasters. But maybe your people don't believe in making toasters, but maybe they believe in quality. What happens when you lift that up? What happens when you make that a value? What happens when you make a culture built on quality and they operate within that culture of quality? And if those are the people who make the toasters, what type of toasters do you think they're going to want to make? The quality kind, right? And that is another difference between a manager and a leader. A manager wants you to believe their thing. A leader wants you to believe the thing. What is it that we believe? What is it that we connect on? We have to teach people the skill of accessing belief. And then there's the ability to inspire. It's another thing that's hard to do in the cynical world. It's hard to step out there and inspire, but I don't care how self-driven you are. I don't care how hard you work. We all will meet a moment where we will be at a low. We all will meet a moment where we're stuck in the mud and we need something to pull us through, and we need people that can inspire us. But again, it's hard to do because we want to be there. We want to be figured out. What do I look like inspiring someone else when I still have vices, when I still have issues, when I still have problems? We want to get there. But part of what we have to teach people is that there is no there. The beginning and the end are just parentheses. Everything in the middle, all the meat on the bone, all of it is journey. And from your favorite guru to the person who's changing the trash liner in your office, everyone is selling the journey. Different parts of it, no doubt, but everyone is selling the journey. And helping people understand and connect to the idea that you don't necessarily need to be able to get someone from here to there. You need to know how to get them from there to here. You've been through things. You've overcome things. You've survived many things. You have the ability, the right, and the responsibility to inspire. How do we teach people to have the courage and the ability to inspire? Now, these are some key components. And a lot of times people may think you're born a leader or you're not. We don't believe that, because anything that you can do better. Anything that you can do better, you can do well. And anything that you do well is a skill. These are skills, and they can be taught and they can be improved. But how do we go about doing this? Well, it's going to take a next-gen approach. And the next-gen approach is an old approach. It takes a village. That's what it takes. It's going to take education reinventing itself. Now, there's people right now that in education who are doing amazing things, they're doing cutting-edge things, they're working their tails off. But it's going to take a reimagining of how we think about it. When we ask young people to be within these walls for 12 to 16 years of their life, and then we ask them to go outside and be successful for the next 65 years of their life, I would argue that that's the primary education and this is the supplementary education. And we have to do a better job of pulling outside inside, of teaching those skills. Because, of course, I believe in teaching math. I think it's super valuable. But in 15 years, what scenario can you see a 16-year-old doing a math equation in their head? But communication, not the ability to speak or not the ability to write, but communication, both in body language and tone, that will affect them in almost every single aspect of their lives for the entirety of their lives. These are the type of things that we could teach. It's going to take a reimagining from employers. Now, employers have been in the business of educating their people for a long time. But this is going to be a little bit different. It's creating lifelong learners, creating a process so people can come into a growth pattern so they're always growing and developing. People can deal with failure. People can deal with winning. What they can't deal with is indifference. What they can't deal with is apathy. What they can't deal with is being stuck, not feel like anything is moving, not feeling like you're growing. That's what really hurts people. And people, much like oak trees, the higher it is that they believe that they're going to grow, the deeper in they set their roots. Make people lifelong learners. Also understanding that you have to create broad experiences and that not every learning opportunity is going to have a direct line to an ROI, because that's not how we learn. Those things that spark the eureka or make things click are very rarely planned and almost impossible to manufacture. They come from a wide range of experiences. And so employers have to be able to create these wide range of experiences so people can access these different things and have an opportunity to learn as a person. Because you can make somebody a better employee, but you don't necessarily make them a better person. But if you make them a better person, you will always make a better employee. And then last but not least is the one that seems to be the most obvious is the community. This is something that the community should be into. This is something that the community should be passionate about. This is something that the community should invest in. Think about it. If you had the choice, would you want your neighbor to be a leader or not? Would you want your pastor to be a leader or not? Would you want the people who educate your kids to be a leader or not? Would you want your police to be a leader or not? Would you want your administration, your leadership, your mayor to be a leader or not? Leadership benefits us all. We should teach it to us all. The other piece is that no school in the community, no business in the community can match the knowledge of a community, can match the experience of the community. Think about the resources we have available to us. Think about the knowledge we have available to us. It's going to take a concerted effort to invest and engage from our community. But here's the thing. Right now, thousands and thousands of boomers are leaving the workforce every single day, every single month. We are on the precipice of the largest changeover of wealth, power, and influence that the world has ever seen. So basically what I'm saying is there's going to be a lot of rocks laying around. I suggest that we make a strong investment and pay special attention to the people who will be holding them. Thank you.